All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's training session, which is presented to you by the Carroll Center for the Blind and hosted by Easter Seals, Massachusetts. This training is being funded through the Federal Assistive Technology Act. My name is Sarah Parker, and I'm the program manager of the Assistive Technology Regional Centers at Easter Seals, Massachusetts. The ATRCs hosted by Easter Seals are lending libraries of assistive technology. Easter Seals offers device demonstrations at 2 locations, Worcester and Boston, and both have extensive lending libraries of AT devices, including laptops and tablets, smart home technology, switches, mounts, software, adapted toys, and more. Residents of Massachusetts can visit our centers to learn about, try, and borrow AT free of charge for 30 days. Thousands of devices are available to promote increased independence and attainment of goals for communication, education, hearing, vision, environmental modification, mobility, daily living. You can create a free user account and search our inventory at the web address massability.at4all.com. I'll post that link in the chat. You may also call us at 617-226-2634 for further information. My colleagues here at Easter Seals, James and Heather, and I will be your moderators for today's session, which is creating accessible Word documents. We thank you for joining for this informative presentation today. Some brief housekeeping items before we begin. CART transcription is available in the stream text link in the chat. And closed captioning is available by clicking the closed caption button at the bottom of the screen as well. If you have questions, please submit them to the Q&A section. These questions will be answered by the panelists as time allows during the live event. This training will be recorded and available for viewing at your convenience. There will be a brief survey available at the end of the session, which we would appreciate if you could complete, as insight provided will allow us to create more presentations of interest to you in the future. And now, please allow me to introduce you to our presenters, David Kingsbury and Lewis Dew, who will get us started.
Thank you very much. Let me first thank Massabilities and Easter Seals for sponsoring this event. You all sponsored an event earlier, I think in the fall, in September, and we found that very useful and enjoyable on our end. Let me first say a few words about the Carroll Center for the Blind, who we are, where we are, what we do, and then we'll launch into the actual presentation. Carroll Center is a residential rehab training center for those low vision and blind people in Newton, Massachusetts, just a few miles out of Boston. Been around since the 1940s or so, originally for training blinded veterans on how to get back to on their feet. It's a training center rather than a school, like you may have heard of the Perkins School for the Blind. So we don't have high school degree programs or anything like that. And our primary vocation is, assisting people who've become blind midway through life, generally, to adapt to blindness. Although we have people of all different ages, including a summer program for teens, for youth. And that includes a number of things. Training in independent living, in other words, how to manage your household independently, orientation and mobility, very important, with the white cane, how to get around town with the white cane, using public transportation, things like that, Braille, and technology. And technology is what we hear about today. We have a technology department, and Lewis and I are part of that. We have a couple of colleagues. And we train people primarily in use of screen reader programs, magnification for low vision, and how to use the computer, how to use other assistive technologies such as smartphones, iPhones, Androids, and the like. And, well, it keeps us pretty busy. And our trainings can range for as little as 2 or 3 hours to 4 to 5 to 6 weeks for the technology training that we do. Lewis is also in charge of a program called Screen Reader User Tester Training, SRUT for short, where we have a number of people who come in the spring and in the fall, done remotely, for learning about web accessibility and being able to become web accessibility trainers. It's a 5-week program, and we actually have the graduation for our spring program tomorrow, be the end of the 5 weeks there. So that's a little bit about who we are at the Carroll Center. Most of our funding, or most of our people, come from Massachusetts, generally funded through the Mass Commission for the Blind. But then we do also have people from other states, and our remote training, especially since the pandemic, has allowed us to go much further afield than we typically do if we had to have people come and be with us on campus all the time. So with that said, I think Lewis is going to be the first presenter. We're going to do a little tag team here, and Lewis will start. So over to you, Lewis.
Great. Sarah, can you start screen share so the slides come up on the screen? Let me know when that happens, please.
All set.
Okay, all set? Sweet. So we are on our first slide, creating accessible Word documents, presented by David Kingsbury and Lewis Doe. There's also a logo of the Carroll Center, a graphic of the Carroll Center logo on the slide as well. Our next slide, what we will be discussing today, who accessibility affects and why it matters. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG for short. I know that we're focusing on document accessibility, but there's several success criteria within WCAG that is helpful for understanding accessibility, and they're also helpful for understanding accessibility for documents. The elements of accessible Word documents, which is also the basis of an accessible PDF, and tools and resources. So why are accessible documents important? Why do they matter? And who does it affect? Well, why are they important? They're important because, of course, as everybody knows, they make a more accessible and usable experience. You all know that intuitively, or else you wouldn't be here. You all know that it's important. You think it's important, and you want to learn more about it. That's exactly why you're here. They matter because document accessibility impacts everybody in various degrees and in various scales. It affects folks like David and I, who are blind screen reader users. It affects people with cognitive disabilities, folks with dyslexia, folks who may be elderly, and may not be familiar or comfortable with technology. So accessible Word documents and accessible digital materials impacts everyone. Everyone has a part to play in making others aware of accessibility and promoting accessibility culture and accessibility implementation. And my screen reader stopped talking, so give me a second. This is the give me a second here, Sarah. All right. We are now back on track. We are on our fourth slide, and this slide is about WCAG, and we'll go into why it's a helpful lens through which to look at document accessibility here. So what is WCAG? So as I said before, WCAG stands for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and it is a set of universally recognized standards to achieve accessibility conformance. It's split into 3 levels. Level A, which is the basic minimum level. Everyone should strive for level A. Double A, which is the happy medium, and triple A, which is above and beyond. WCAG, in its various versions and iterations, is being used by many organizations. Legislation is also based on WCAG. Some examples of that are Section 508, which states that all electronic materials from the federal government needs to meet WCAG version 2.0 level AA. Title II of the Americans with Disability Act states that state and local governments have the next 2 to 3 years to make sure that their electronic content meets with WCAG 2.1 level AA. So the principles of WCAG are perceivable. So perceivable stands basically is telling you that the person who is interacting with your content, in our case, of course, it's accessible Microsoft Word documents, they or the technology, the assistive technology that they are using needs to be able to perceive the document. So if you have a document with bad contrast, then somebody with low vision can't read it. If you have a document that is full of unlabeled graphics, then somebody with a visual disability who's totally blind is going through using their screen reader won't know what those graphics are and why they're meaningful. If the reading order isn't clear, then somebody with a cognitive disability will have a difficult time, if not an impossible time, making heads or tails of the document and what the document is trying to convey. The second principle is operable. So operability is, of course, important, right? You want to be able to scroll through your documents. You want to go to beginning to end. You want to go to specific sections if you're called to do that. So if your document is not operable, then you can't navigate it. And that's pretty self-explanatory. It impacts everybody. Everybody wants to be able to navigate your document. Understandable. So how you write and how you present your document is key here. Who are you speaking with? Or who are you writing to? Is this document understandable by all populations, or do you need to be in the inside club in order to understand the meaning and the impact of what the document is trying to convey? Hopefully the answer is no. You don't have to be a part of any exclusive club in order to understand the point of the document. And robust, which is their attempt that assistive technologies, as the digital landscape evolves, assistive technologies and people with disabilities are not left behind. So some fun success criterias of WCAG that pertain to documents. I just picked out some out here to share with you all. I'm sure if you look at the entire list of success criterias, I think it's like 87 of them, you can find more and you can make your own arguments against that. But these are some of the ones that I picked out that I thought were most applicable. 1.1.1 non-text content. So this for us has to deal with graphs and images, graphics and images. They need to have alt text, and alt text you may think it only helps people who are blind or low vision. This is not the case. Screen reader users come in many facets and many lifestyles. So somebody with a cognitive disability may want to use a screen reader because it's less fatiguing. Somebody with dyslexia may want to use a screen reader because they want to rest their eyes. Alt text for somebody who's neurodivergent, it can explain what the meaning is about because certain visuals and images could be, they could not make sense if you just look at it. So the alt text is helps everybody. It helps, for example, to help explain cultural things, or if it's a alt text for something niche, then the meaning gets clear because you're adding alt text to that. So it just increases understanding. 131, info and relationships. So how do the different sections of the document connect? How do the pieces connect? What is the relationship between section A and section B? How do I as a user of your document, how can I understand what the content is about? 244, link, purpose, and context. So when I'm reading through your document, I can understand what and where the link, if you do add hyperlinks, where it will take me and what the link is about. 246, headings and labels. So you're using proper heading structure, which facilitates quick and efficient navigation through documents. All right, the document structure features. We kind of discussed this in the last slide, but we'll reinforce it here. So hierarchical structure, hierarchical headings for semantic structure. So for example, you want to start with heading level 1 for your title, and then you go into heading level 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. And you should be asking yourself, what is the purpose of my heading level 2? What section is it trying to highlight? What is the section of my heading level 3? So on and so forth. Your heading level 1 should just be your title. That it's unique, so it should be the exact title of your document or similar. You don't want to go out of order, which is why we use the word hierarchical here. You don't want to start a document with a heading level 6, and then you go to heading level 2, and then you go to heading level 5. Nobody counts like that, so really no reason why you would want to count like that here. If you have a longer document, you want to have a table of contents just to facilitate easier navigation and offer another means for people to jump from one section to another section that might be further down in the document. It also provides a really nice preview of what this document has to offer. You want to use numbered and bulleted lists to structure anything that is in a list. A numbered list, you can think of numbered lists as ordered lists. So steps in a process, for example, step 1, put plate in microwave. Step 2, close microwave. Step 3, start microwave, that kind of thing. And a bulleted list or a non-ordered list, of course, has no order, but you want to for all these things, you want to use words built-in formatting features to structure your document. You don't want to rely on visual cues. And everything that we've just mentioned thus far, numbered and bulleted list, table of contents, hierarchical headings for semantic structure, all of these things, what they do is that they facilitate non-visual navigation and efficient screen reader navigation. Non-visual comprehension and screen reader navigation, excuse me. All right, so our next slide talks about meaningful hyperlinks. So active links make accessing associated content quick and easy. So make sure that your links work. That's the point of that one. Don't send us to a defective URL. Have your link labels to the best of your ability. Have it be clear so we know where we're going. So a link that says click here means nothing. But if a link that says Easter Seals website or Carroll Center homepage, that has a lot more meaning than words like learn more or click here. You've heard enough of my droning voice, so I will now pass it over to my colleague David Kingsbury, who will start us on our ninth slide here, which will be talking about tables.
Thank you, Lewis. So my turn here. Regarding tables, the general important message is keep them simple, okay? One point is don't use tables for sort of layout or design or fancy graphical type purposes. Use tables only to convey, meaningful tabular type of information. Those only distract or confuse screen reader users. In terms of tables themselves that have content, keeping them simple also means avoiding as much as possible merged cells, nested tables, tables within tables. It can make it much harder to understand, sometimes even impossible to understand the cell data. You know, what cell, this cell, what column header that is up at the top in the top row, what does it refer to? What row header? When I say the terms column headers and row headers, think of a table with monthly bill amounts. And along the top row, you have January, February, March, etc. And along the leftmost column down, you have gas, water, electric. January is the column header for the January column because everything down that column relates to January bills. Gas is the row header for everything along the gas row. Again, simple tables will generally have one row, simple row with your column headers along the top and your row headers down the leftmost column and your data in the middle. We're going to do an audio file a little bit later, and you'll be able to understand how, as a screen reader user, I can interpret a simple table very, very easily. Word does a good job of announcing column and row headers as you're navigating around inside the table. Next slide is using what we call alternative text or descriptive text. If you have images, of course, sighted folks can see those images. Office and various other programs have the ability to add what's called alt text. These are generally simply succinct, one sentence, objective descriptions of a picture so that blind people can also understand what's going on in a picture. Now, don't confuse that with alt text with captions. Captions are text that are written on the screen, that are written in the document. Sighted people can see them. We as blind folks can also read that information, but alt text is added for screen reader users in the Microsoft Office programs for graphics so that we can also understand what's going on in those pictures. Next are columns. You may have a page where you have sort of a 2 or more column passage, and Word has a built-in column feature. You want to use that. You don't want to somehow, through tabbing or putting in a bunch of spaces, somehow, visually separate the columns in that way. Screen reader users will not be able to interpret or read or understand that data at all. If you use the columns feature, we do have the ability to simply read down a column and then wrap back up to the top of the next column and so on, so that we can interpret that. I'll say from my own personal point of view, reading columns in that type of situations, a little bit sort of more of an advanced function for screen reader users. So my preference would generally to have tables instead. But anyway, if you are going to have columns of text, use that column feature that Word has. Don't just sort of try to jerry rig or duct tape together something like sticking a bunch of tabs in between to visually somehow make it look that way. We will not be able to interpret that. Color and contrast. First off, any information that you're providing through color should be added in some other way. One thing that can be very difficult for people is sometimes highlighting text. That is, for example, changing the background color to red to somehow highlight it in some way. We have no way really to navigate efficiently to that text, or there are some ways, but they're really sort of advanced type feature things, and they're a bit finicky. So, marking text as red, this is important or something like that, that is pretty much generally discouraged. Simply convey that information in some other way, saying, this is important or something like that, rather than that. Color contrast between foreground color and background color should be distinctly different enough so that low vision users can detect the text from the background. I think that's generally a good rule, regardless of whoever's reading. The simplest thing to do is simply use the standard black text on a white background. That's the normal text style. That's the default in Word. No reason to change that. The default color patterns for headings is blue on white. And what I do simply is I update my heading styles to make them simply black on white. You can't go wrong with black on white. There are also various tools out there for analyzing the text to see whether it does have adequate color contrast. But if you just do black on white, then you don't have to worry about that type of stuff. Next. Some text formatting considerations. Fonts. Really avoid using anything smaller than 11 or a 12-point font. Use sort of some standard fonts, ideally sans serif fonts like Arial, Calibri, Aptos, one or two others. Some of the serif fonts like Times New Roman can be used, but all those little squiggles can, to some extent, get in a way for low vision readers. Again, can't really go wrong with things like Arial. Avoid italicizing. That can be very hard for low vision people to read italics. One very important thing to realize, back to what Lewis said earlier about using headings. If you simply bold text rather than creating styles or using headings, if you simply bold text to sort of make it stand out or make it bigger or something like that, and you don't create it as a heading, we really have no way of interpreting that that is important information, nor understanding sort of the structure and organization. So really using headings when you want to somehow highlight text as start of new sections and so on is really very, very, very important. And that's just very important to do that. It also greatly aids navigation. Again, in the audio file that we'll hear later, you'll hear a bit of how when documents have headings, how it's much easier for blind folks to navigate and understand the structure and content of the document a bit easier. Also, simply best for white space, that is, spacing between paragraphs. if you go with the defaults of Word, a decent amount of white space or an appropriate amount of white space is built in between paragraphs, built in between headings. If you simply stick with those, then that's good, because, if text is sort of jammed together, there too, it can be a little hard to know where a paragraph begins and another one ends, or, where separating out heading information from other types of information. That white space helps. Also, hide formatting markers, like the little dots that you can visually see for blank spaces, or these little other squiggles for paragraph returns. We can get rid of those, but they can be annoying. A lot of people don't know how to get rid of them, and they really mess up your screen reader experience. In terms of document language, keep the language simple. We call chunking things, no run-on sentences. Some things that are frankly, basically, good practices simply for writing work here. Also, if you have text that is intended to be in a former language, je ne sais quoi and things like that, you want to tag that in the foreign language. And your screen readers do have the ability to pick that up and actually switch to the language. If you don't, it's just going to, read your French or German sounding very Americanish, I guess, like somebody lost overseas. And a few other things to avoid. Text boxes. Text boxes are largely inaccessible for screen reader users to be able to interpret. So avoid those. Watermarking. If watermarks matter, we're not going to be able to detect those either. Word art also. Avoid using that stuff. Last thing, I'm going to talk about Microsoft. For the Microsoft Office programs, have accessibility checkers. That is for Word, Outlook, Excel, and PowerPoint. They flag errors, warnings, and tips. An error is something serious. That is, if you don't fix it, it is inaccessible. Standard example, a common example of an error would be graphics that do not have alt text. Okay, and a warning would be something where you really should fix it. It could be difficult to interpret. For example, merged cells in a table, like I was talking about, would be an example of a warning. And tips would be, sort of best practices. You could really do this better, but it's not necessarily a major accessibility violation. A lack of headings in a document, a short document, could be flagged as, or a longer document, could be flagged as a tip. My own personal opinion is I'd call that more of a warning, because I really like having headings in documents. Not having them does make interpretation more difficult. There are limitations. Some things that perhaps should be flagged aren't flagged. And I was finding with the playing around with the word accessibility checker the other day, it wasn't really showing me errors, warnings, and the like. My experience has been that I think this works quite a bit better with PowerPoint, but using it is better than not using it. However, if you follow through on the types of things that Lewis and I have been talking about already, you probably will not get any errors detected. But it is there. It is a good tool. It's in the review tab of the ribbon, and it's worth a look through. And there are also links to pages on the web or in Microsoft Help and Support that give you more details about the types of problems you run into and what you can do about them, because solutions are also offered. And although it's not our focus, I want to mention too that for making accessible PDFs, your foundation of an accessible PDF is an accessible Word document. Because if you put headings in your Word documents, you put alt text, you put uh, correctly formatted tables and the like, and a number of other things, lists, you will be able to access these quickly in PDF. So these things translate over really quite well. But if you don't do these things and you create a PDF, you're not going to be able to remedy that within the PDF unless you're using Adobe Pro, but it's much more complicated than simply creating an appropriate Word document and saving it. Finally, we have just some links to various tools and resources. There's a ton of stuff out there to learn more about this. Lewis has talked about the web, the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It's a wealth of information there about, all the details regarding what the guidelines are, and remedies for fixing them. And it's always a work in progress. So continued revisions and work are being done on that. A company called TPGI has a color contrast analyzer. You can bring a document right in and just check whether you've got color contrast issues with it. Same for websites. And a shameless plug, there is a book called The Windows Screen Reader Primer, All the Basics and More, authored by yours truly, currently available for free from the Carroll Center website. Talking not about Word, but essentially all things Office, screen reader related, web browsing. It's in its 3rd edition. We update it every year. 4th edition is coming out in May. We're going to have a Zoom webinar to kick off that 4th edition because technology always changes, and we want to keep up with that by putting that out regularly. We'll continue to do that for a while longer. And of course, I mentioned, or Lewis mentioned, or I mentioned, the screen reader user testing training. Oh boy, help me out, Lewis. Screen reader user testing
Screen reader
tester
user
training.
tester training program. Yes.
Yes.
And
right. And maybe you say a few words about it.
Yeah, it's a 5-week course. Of course, a lot, and it helps you prepare for a career in web accessibility. We also, of course, touch on document accessibility and just overall accessibility. And I try to make the content as relatable to that particular group of students as possible. We also accept sighted participants, by the way. So if you want a 5-week course, 3 hours a day of immersion training using a screen reader, if that's something you need or are interested in, we are also happy to work with you there as well.
So we got a couple of other things to show you. Again, the audio file I mentioned, and I think we have a YouTube, but I think this would be a good moment to pause for any questions, if there are any. We can take a few, and then we can listen to those audios, those recordings.
Before we head into Q&A here, I just want to make a point explicitly clear, even though we've done that during our presentation, and it's that do not rely on visual formatting and think that you will get away with an accessible document. Please, if you're using Word, then learn about the features of your program, the formatting and styling features of your program. Whatever program you're using, use those tools within your program and understand those programs. Do not expect that because something looks nice, it's going to be a nice experience for everybody. So if that's the only takeaway that you take away, is that don't rely on visual formatting and understand understand the tools that you're using, then we yes, somebody just wrote the space bar is not a format tool, and yeah, we agree with that.
Nor is the tab.
Nor is the tab key. Yes, so I think it was Matthew who wrote that. Yeah, you get the point. Yeah, so we've definitely done right by you here for sure. So thank you for that. So yeah, please understand the formatting features in your programs. if there's an accessibility checker, please run it. If you don't see one, Google for it. But do not rely on visual formatting. I cannot say that enough.
We have a question in the Q&A. It says a lot of municipal documents require a signed version to be uploaded to the website. Thus, it is a scanned version of the document and not accessible. What is the best workaround for this?
Good question. So if it is a PDF, for example, because scanned PDFs is often the situation, at least the JAWS program itself. Well, first off, ideally avoid doing that if possible. But often things are scanned because they're photos of documents. The original underlying Word document's not available. The JAWS program actually has a great tool called convenient OCR, optical character recognition. And it can take scanned images, most of them, not necessarily all of them. And it can interpret that, and it does a really, really good job of it. But again, if one can avoid scanned images, that's the best thing. But we do have tools for dealing with those. The screen reader programs do. Mm-hmm.
So you'll be able to read those documents, whether you're able to manipulate and sign them and fill out if it's a PDF form or something like that, and it's a scanned image. That's another, topic of discussion entirely. So, there may be extra help needed there, but in terms of reading it, that I totally agree with David. The JAWS OCR is great, and there's other OCR programs there that can accomplish the same task, but completing in terms of operability, the document may not be operable.
Yeah, and it is now the law. Now, whether it gets rescinded or not, but the Department of Justice, put out some guidelines last year that state and municipal government documentation is supposed to be, it's required that it become accessible within, I think, by next year. Of course, whether that happens or not, that's easier said than done. But
yeah, so
it is now the law.
But you do, contact your local officials and that kind of thing, and say that Title II of the ADA does require that state and local governments electronic materials, including documents, are becoming, they need to be WCAG 2.1 AA compliant. So these things do need to be accessible. So you can you have some legislation on your side. What good that does is by a case basis.
Any other questions
there?
Not seeing any more questions in the chat.
Yep. Then how about we show the video and audio, and then we can do round 2 of Q&A?
Yep. And Sarah, you have those and you can screen share those with the audio?
I do. What would you like me to start with?
You want maybe start with the YouTube, the shorter of the two.
1 second.
When we create documents that are accessible to all, we ensure a more inclusive experience for everyone. This Word doc visually looks good and includes hyperlinks and images. I'm going to show you how people who are blind or have low vision will consume the doc. They use a screen reader, like the one built into Windows called Narrator. Listen to what it says.
Renewable energy sources. Defining renewable energy. Page 1, picture, blank. The proliferation of renewable energy sources, see link, here, will be key to not only becoming carbon neutral.
So this document looks fine, but it isn't accessible to all since the screen reader doesn't recognize the heading and the picture and hyperlinks are useless. Let me show you Microsoft Office's built-in tools so you can fix these issues and make your documents accessible to all. First, start with the Check Accessibility button. It's in the Review tab with the other tools you use to proof your docs. Select it and a panel opens with a list of items we can address. Alt Text provides context to screen readers, as well as makes images easier to search and find. You may find automatic descriptions already here. Check and edit them to describe what is seen. If the images are not informative, like this RD separator, select Mark as Decorative. For headings, we just don't want to bold and choose a bigger font. Screen readers will read it like a sentence. We use headings to organize the document. Select a heading style from the ribbon, and you'll get a formatted design. Plus, headings can help you make a table of contents. And the screen reader will announce it's a heading.
Heading 2, defining renewable energy, 3 wind turbines on a wind farm at twilight.
You'll find the accessibility checker in other Office apps like Outlook and Excel. You can look for a specific issue too, like merge cells. You can fix tables which screen readers might repeat or skip if the cells are merged. Simply select Unmerge in the menu. Also in Excel, check out this chart. Look good to you? Well, anyone who is colorblind may have challenges understanding the chart. Just adding data titles next to each part of the pie chart allows the information to be more inclusive. Now we can all see pineapple as the biggest slice. In PowerPoint, use Accessibility Checker to see the reading order of slides. Select the arrow to see it drop down and fix the order, so a screen reader will read it top to bottom, left to right. When you're in a Teams meeting and ready to present, use PowerPoint Live. It can help to make meetings inclusive for everyone, including captions and view slides in high contrast if needed. When you can solve for one person, the benefits extend to many. There's more you can do with accessibility in your documents, and you can start at support.microsoft.com/accessibility.
And if you want to run the audio of the MP3 now.
Sorry, just 1 second.
Okay. Now going to demo some of the accessibility settings or issues that we talked about during the PowerPoint from the standpoint of a screen reader user and what I experience. I'm using JAWS, and I'm in a document with the following title. I'll up arrow to it.
Word document accessibility.
Okay, and we'll first talk about headings. And again, headings are very, very useful for navigation purposes, to move around a document quickly, to be able to quickly understand the organization and structure of the document, as well as to get a quick idea of what some of the content might be. I would like to make this title into a level 1 heading. You do this in the Home tab of the ribbons, but we can also use a shortcut key, which is Control-Alt-1.
Alt-Control-1.
And I'll down arrow and up arrow, and we will hear that that is a heading 1 now.
Key strategies. Heading level 1 Word document accessibility.
formatting should have changed also to be a heading 1 style. I'll down arrow.
Key strategies.
I'll make this a heading 2, Control Alt 2.
Alt Control 2. Use the following heading level 2 key strategies.
And I could do the same for heading 3s. Now the remainder of the document is already marked up with headings, and I can access those in a couple of different ways with my screen reader. I can get a list of headings by hitting Insert F6. Now I understand that you will not be able to see that on the screen, but I can hit Insert F6 and we will hear it at least.
Heading list dialog. Headings list view. Word document accessibility: 1 of 12. To move to items, use the arrow keys.
We heard it say Word accessibility, Word document accessibility, whatever, :1, telling us :1 that is a level 1 heading. I'll down arrow.
Key strategies: 2 of 12.
:2, a heading 2. Again, we have a total of 12 headings in the document now, and I could down arrow through to hear the rest of them. I'll just down arrow through the next 3 or 4.
Headings and subheadings: 2, 3 of 12. Bulleted and numbered lists: 2, 4 of 12. Tables: 2, 5 of 12. Alt text descriptions: 2, 6 of 12.
And if I would like to get into the document right at this point, I can hit enter.
Enter. Heading level 2 alt text descriptions. Edit page 3.
And I'm right here on page 3. I'll go back to the top of the document.
Page 1, top of file. Heading level 1 Word document accessibility.
I can also navigate by heading as well as by heading level by putting my screen reader into, taking it out of the current edit mode and putting into a virtual mode. JAWS calls this quick keys or quick navigation keys mode by hitting Insert Z.
Quick keys on.
I can now navigate by heading by hitting the letter H.
Heading 2 key strategies. Heading 2 headings and subheadings.
Or by heading level by hitting the level, on the number row, the number of that heading level. So I'll go to the next heading 2 by hitting 2.
Heading 2 bulleted and numbered lists.
I could also go backwards by doing Shift 2.
Heading 2 headings and subheadings.
Or back a heading by doing Shift H.
Heading 2 key strategies.
So this greatly aids navigation as well as understanding the content. With quick keys mode on, we also have several other keys that we can use to move around quickly. I can hit L to jump to the next list.
Entering list, bullet format, headings and subheadings in a logical order using the styles group on the.
And that might be, that could be a bulleted list as we saw, that could be a numbered list. I can also use it to jump to tables. And let me hit the letter T for that.
Table 1, non-uniform table, row 1 of 6, column 1 of 6, page 2, exit list.
Let's take a few moments to examine this table and how with my screen reader I can interact with it. Word does a good job of building in announcement of column headers and row headers. This greatly facilitates my ability to understand what a given cell in the middle of the table corresponds to in terms of the column header and row header. Now, what this table is, it's completely fictitious. It is quarterly violations of web accessibility guidelines by different type of website, financial, retail, and so on. I can use Control, Alt, and the 4 arrow keys to move up, down, right, left through the table. I'll do Control, Alt, down arrow.
Retail, row 2 of 6.
And we're on the second row where we have retail. I'll right arrow.
Quarter 1, 52.
And I know that that is quarter 1 retail violations, that number 52. I'll right arrow again.
Quarter 2, 76.
Quarter 2 retail again. If I Control Alt down arrow.
Restaurant, 73.
Restaurant violations for quarter 2. Again, down.
Entertainment, 62.
Entertainment, quarter 2. Go to the right.
Quarter 3, 72.
And there's entertainment for that quarter. If I did not have my column and row headers announced as I moved up, down, left, right, I would manually have to navigate back to the back up to the column header to know what that is, manually move back down to the cell in question, and then go all the way over to the left to hear the row header. Only then would I be able to interpret what the number in the cell means. Very tedious, and this is only a small table. Imagine if this was a larger table. Now, this works well if the tables are simple, but if we have merged cells for column headers or row headers, or even worse, nested tables within tables, it's going to be much harder to interpret. So as much as possible, it is good to keep the tables simple. I can also jump to pictures. These are referred to as graphics, and I will hit the letter G to jump to the next graphic. There's one picture in here.
Page 4, picture.
And there's a picture. And it's a picture of some penguins standing on a beach. But there's a problem. There is no alt text here. So as a screen reader user, I have no way of knowing that. I'll down arrow, and we simply have the text that should be in here as alt text.
Example: group of free emperor penguins standing on the beach in Antarctica on a sunny day.
All right. That's what we'd like to put in. I'm going to turn my quick keys off because I need to go back into edit mode.
Quick keys off.
I'll up arrow.
Example: group of free home.
I'll select that text.
Group. Selected. Group of free emperor penguins standing on the beach in Antarctica on a sunny day.
I'll copy it.
Copied selection to clipboard.
Now, JAWS has a nice keystroke to select the picture. I'll hit that right now. Control-Shift-O. These are actually referred to as objects.
Please wait. Processing 1 items. Inline objects dialog. List 1. List view. Greater shape 6.5 inches wide by 4.
I'll hit Enter to select that.
Enter. Selected. Picture 1 image 13 inches wide by 9.75 inches high in line with text. Picture 6.5 inches wide by 4.875 inches high. The object is selected.
I'll hit the applications key now.
Wait. Processing 1 items. Enter. Selected. Picture 1 image 13 inches wide by 9. Application group. Cut 1 of 3. Remove the selection and put it on the.
I hit the applications key. Again, equivalent of the right mouse click. I'm going to up arrow a few times.
Type to search and use it. Group, format, size and position, no content, view all text, ... 1 of 4, show the automatic.
To view all text, I'll hit enter.
Enter leaving menus, Microsoft Word document, edit, type and text.
And I will paste my alt text in here.
Pasted from clipboard, sunny day, pasted.
Now, by the way, I should say that in Office 365, there will often be AI-generated alt text, which is better than nothing, but often it isn't accurate, and it's very, very general. You typically do better by putting in your own alt text, which again should be quite concise, generally no more than a single sentence. When you put it in, you hit your escape key.
Top of file, head, page 4, picture group of free emperor penguins standing on the beach in Antarctica on a sunny day.
And there we are. So again, a demo of a few of the different things that we can do to make a Word document accessible, as I experience from my perspective as a screen reader. Any more questions?
Just a couple things to repeat here. If you select your, keep in mind, I'm not a mouse or visual learner, so this may be wrong, but if you select the graphic that you want to add alt text to, and you right click on it, then options for you to add alt text should show up. Again, don't use or rely on AI generated alt text. Use it as a tool. Don't use merge cells in your tables, and always use your Microsoft Accessibility Checker to double check your work, just as if you would use spell check. But you know what's the best way to make sure that your document is accessible? If you have the possibility at all, have a real person read through your document before you distribute it, so they can assist you with accessibility related needs. We are we are out there. People like us do this for work, and we would love to work with you. Sarah,
Yep, we had a question in the chat. It says, for alt text, should it say, quote, picture of, or quote, graphic of? Or is that redundant on a screen reader?
Thank you for reminding us. No, and that should have maybe have been even one of the bullets. Yeah, don't say picture of, graphic of, because it will announce that it is a picture or image.
It will tell us that it's a graphic, so we just need the text. So three emperor penguins standing together on a sunny day, right? That's the text. But once it's implemented properly, we would hear it as three emperor penguins standing together on a sunny day graphic. And the word graphic is provided to us by our screen readers because it recognizes that element that it's focused on as a graphic.
If I may, let me mention one other thing when we talk about graphics and pictures that I think is worth talking about. And with the advent of AI, some really revolutionary things have occurred in terms of using AI for giving detailed descriptions of graphics. Alt text should always be what we just talked about, something very concise, to the point, one sentence or so. But JAWS has an amazing feature called Picture Smart. And even if you don't have JAWS, there is a free application you can download called Be My Eyes for Windows. And with that, you can focus on a graphic and then get ChatGPT generated detailed descriptions of pictures. And for me, I've been using JAWS for 20 years. There are new features pretty much every year. And in my mind, in these 20 years, that has been the single most important, useful thing. It just brings accessibility for screen reader users to a whole new level. So I can get, pictures of something I'm thinking of buying on Amazon. I can get just web pages described to me. Even I think the gentleman in the YouTube talked in a somewhat inaccessible way about charts. Remember, he was talking about the pie chart with pineapples. We can get those pie charts described to us in great detail, so we can actually have access to things like charts that were simply inaccessible before. So some amazing things going on with AI that have greatly benefited people with visual disabilities.
Thank you. And we have another question. It says, when inserting images, does it matter how it's inserted? For example, inline versus in front or back of text?
I think you're supposed to do inline. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but there is a way you're supposed to do it. You also, I don't think, ideally, you may not want text to be wrapping around and so on. Background images could be a problem too if there's foreground text.
Hopefully the accessibility checker will flag that as an issue.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions they'd like to ask? You can ask them in the Q&A.
While we're on the topic of alt text, it should be objective. The downfall of AI alt text is that it will tell you what to think. So if it said something like, three nice and friendly penguins are standing together on a sunny day. Nice and friendly, slightly subjective, I would say. So, be mindful of any biases when you are writing alt text, because you may feel strongly about something. And granted, we may agree with you, but we kind of want to be able to come up with our own opinions of things on our own.
Your chat GPT and Google Gemini. They always like to, towards the end, sort of add like some warm, fuzzy, highly subjective little ending statement there. But, you know, like everything else, trust but verify.
Exactly.
All right, it's not looking like any more questions have come through. But if anyone has any questions they think of after, you can always reach out to me and I can get those questions over to the panelists.
Yes, please. We are happy to answer questions post sessions. We enjoyed giving the presentation today to you. Definitely going to use from Matthew. The space bar is not a formatting tool. Taking that to the bank. Thank you very much. And really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sarah, I
thank
don't
you.
know if you've sent it out to participants already, but there's a link where you'll be able to, download today's PowerPoint, the audio files, the video files, as well as a PDF that we didn't talk about, but that basically goes through the same things that we talked about, but also with some screenshots of where you find this and that in the word ribbons. So like 4 or 5 references you'll have.
Great. Yeah. So I sent out that information to people who are registered in advance of the webinar,
Great.
but I'm happy to send that out after. I'm also it's going to take a little bit of time to process, but once we do have a recorded version of this webinar, that will be sent out after, and that'll be available on YouTube as well as all the other recordings of training sessions in this webinar series. There is a question in the chat. I believe it's one that's already been addressed, but if you wanted to reiterate how, when inserting images, does it matter how it's inserted?
Yeah, we're not sure on that, right? So
Well, what I typically do is, whether it's in a Word document or PowerPoints, because that's also where I'll put them in, is I typically simply copy and paste them into sort of the correct place. JAWS, as a screen reader user, will actually announce the dimensions of it. I can resize, I can reposition. It's a little tricky as a screen reader user. I try to do my best, but then I'll always seek visual confirmation. In fact, in the PowerPoint that we prepared earlier, Sarah actually flagged that there was a problem with one graphic image that was like sort of covering over a part of the PowerPoint. And I didn't have time to sort of resize that or whatever. And it wasn't that important. So I just deleted it out. So it can be a little tricky, but there are ways to move those around. Again, you can redimension graphics in Word, there's like size and dimensions or something with the right mouse click, and you can do that, and so on. Definitely much easier to do when you can see it. You'll know if it's in there right, if you can see that it looks right. I try my best, and then I try to get some visual confirmation that it's looking okay.
yeah, you can also try depending on how you insert images, create a test document, add the image however you add it, and then run it through the accessibility checker and see if anything shows up. Sarah, can you read the comment that was just added in chat here?
Yep, Matthew added, alt text is read at the location of the anchor of image, which is in line with the text.
So sorry, the non-visual users aren't able to give you more info, but I think that kind of helps us answer the question there. So thank you. So probably inline images would be the best practice here.
Great. Okay. Again, seeing no more questions. Thank you so much, David and Lewis, for your presentation. That was really awesome. I'm gonna post a chat that has a post-webinar survey. If you could please fill that out, that's really helpful information for us to know, which is going to inform future presentations. And again, I'll send out an email to everyone who was an attendee today that has the, oh, David, I'm just going to mute you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That has the information on how to access the recording, the presentation slides, all that information will be available. And we hope to see you at our next webinar presentation. May 8th, we're going to talk about accessible PDFs. So here's the survey. And thank you all for being here.